brief update for everyone. Everyone's doing really well with Imagine If, and hopefully you're getting really good advice from your mentors right now. And we've got our startup report, which has a deadline tomorrow. This is really great chance for you to showcase your startup, both on like freshly formatted report we're putting together, which will be circulated with investors, as well as like an online searchable database that all the investors, key stakeholders can find you and yeah, get in contact with you. So it's a great way to expand your network that way. And yeah, so we'll post the link in the chat, and yeah, take a look at that and make sure you fill it in before tomorrow to make sure you don't miss out. And secondly, we've got our expert one-on-ones. So we've got experts. We've been searching for different companies that have expertise in a whole load of different fields, from like strategy consulting to regulatory affairs, devices that can really help give you sort of really tailored advice beyond the individual mentors that you have. So please make sure you make the most of those, because they can really help move the needle for you. And one of the companies we've got to actually focus on, let me stop sharing. A key component of the Imagine If program, your promo video, is PictureCo, and they've been gracious enough to sponsor this workshop and host. So we have the Avengers of the video production world coming together now to give you the lowdown of how to really make a really professional video that can sell your vision of your startup. So I'd like to invite Phil, Chris, and Stephen to just give a little bit of an introduction of themselves before we kick off to the webinar workshop itself. So can we start with Phil? Do you want to give a...
So hi everyone, I've been making videos for quite a long time. I've been kind of in hospitals and clinics, universities, and also in finance organizations as well. So kind of seeing things from a number of different angles. I'm very much a hands-on person. I'm using the edit suites, I'm using the cameras, using the microphones, and I have a lifetime of experience of putting all that together. So that's basically me and Chris.
Hello, my name's Chris Roberts. It's like University Challenge, this, isn't it? And my specialised subject is corporate video these days, but for 20 odd years I worked in television. I was a news reporter, then a foreign correspondent, then an anchor with ITN and Sky News, and I now work with Phil, helping lovely people such as yourselves tell their stories. But more on me in a little bit, otherwise I haven't got any presentation. Stephen.
Hi, thanks Ivan. My name's Stephen. I'm the business strategy guy here at PictureCo. I've helped a number of companies to raise investment over the years, and have also worked as an investment scout for a number of tech investors, which I still do. I've helped a number of companies to grow and sell their business for 6 or 7 figure sums, which is very nice, which is what I'm sure a lot of you ladies and gentlemen would like to be doing today at some point. And I've also walked in your shoes. So I've set up companies, I've run companies, I've sold companies, and I've worked with a business angel for 7 years. So it was my job to do the due diligence for the investors.
Okay, fantastic. So as I said, a great panel to discuss all of your video productions needs. So as well as the workshop, there'll be like a Q&A session at the end. So please put any questions in the chat, and we can come back to those at the very end. And this will be recorded as well. So yeah, make sure if you put your video off if you don't want video, and please mute until the end, and then we can have a bit more of a free-form discussion. And yeah, without further ado, I'd like to invite Stephen to start off with the workshop.
Thanks, Ivan. That's great. I mean, to be honest, when it comes to videography, I'm going to leave that to Phil and Chris. I'm not an expert. I'm always learning from Phil. He's an amazing guy and very, very good at what he does. So I'll leave the art and science of videography to these two experts in a moment. The only message I would try and give to somebody who's looking to raise money, having been there, done it myself many times, I've been both sides of the fence, both as a dragon, or advising a dragon rather, I suppose, and also raising money myself. The one message that I would say today, if you're going to take anything away from a commercial aspect, try and put yourself in the shoes of the investor. Investors are not always born into money. They often made it. They often worked very, very hard for many years. The investor I worked for gave himself 2 heart attacks working on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and he made his millions. Now, he invested his money very, very carefully. Think about what's in it for them. Think about return on investment. When you're doing your video, the tech, whatever you're doing, is very, very important. And Chris will talk about the storytelling. Phil will talk about how to do the best filming, how to do the best editing. But at the end of the day, put yourself in the shoes of the investor. Think what the return on investment is for them, and try and get that across in your video. You've only got a very short space of time to get that message across. They're going to be looking at a lot of different companies. You want to make sure they choose you. I've just got to plug something else today. In the chat, if you look in the chat, you'll see a link at the top for a Calendly meeting. We've got an offer today for anybody from Innovation Forum. It's especially for you. Producing a video, if you're a young company, can seem daunting and expensive. So we've got a silly offer today, and this is for a very, very basic self-shoot, we edit. We'll train you, but self-shoot, we edit, starting at just 295 sterling, which is silly prices. And Phil will probably be running around with the team like a maniac if you all take this up. But have a look in the link, choose that. We're also offering you a free 30-minute session with Phil and I to run through your ideas, give you some free consultancy and help you. And there's also another freebie in there. There's a how-to guide. Everything that you're going to watch today, Phil's written it all out for you, so you can actually have a copy of that, something to walk away with. Best to get on now. Over to you, Phil.
Hi, well, thanks for the intro there, Stephen. So let's get on with the actual presentation. So I'm excited to be here with you all. And in my original script, I said a bit nervous. I'm more than a bit nervous. I'm a lot nervous. I'm usually behind the camera. I'm not normally in front of it. So if any of you are feeling kind of apprehensive about the idea of having to present in your own videos or to an audience or on camera, I totally get it. And part of our job is that we help that whole process to feel natural and easy. And between us, we've helped thousands of people get their ideas across on TV, in corporate and in healthcare communications and investor relations. There'll be more on that later, mostly from Chris. And right now, I just wanted to say something about why I'm excited to be here, which is that I'm looking forward to meeting you all and finding out about the initiatives that you're bringing to life. I'm looking forward to being an admittedly small part of the process of taking those precious ideas that started as nothing more than perturbations and substrate of your consciousness and turning them into a reality. Ideas that could go on to make the world a better place, revolutionize industries, save lives. We are all here, and Innovation Forum is here to make that happen, to help those ideas navigate the crazily inefficient trek that they have to take through today's economic and cultural topography to become a phenomenon that can add value to the human experience. Along the way to becoming a viable commercial proposition, they must transition from a thought shared by some to a belief shared by many. And this presentation is about what can be one of the most effective methods to speed that transition. The title of this presentation is How to Cheat at Video, and the theme is removing the barriers to communication. The biggest barrier of all that video removes is the barrier of invisibility. If people don't know about your initiative, they can't interact with it. They can't help it grow. Video isn't the only way to achieve this, but it is a tool to do that job, and it's a very effective tool. Part of that effectiveness comes from hijacking perceptive systems' propensity to pay attention to things that move. And a well-constructed video moves in multiple dimensions. The pictures move, the scene changes, the audio is patterned to draw attention. The narrative presents a compelling journey through the conceptual landscape. So the biggest cheat of all is not cheating at video, but cheating with video. And hopefully you'll feel better equipped to do that by the end of this presentation. And now I'd like to introduce you to someone who's not only comfortable in front of the camera, but made a career of it. You've already discovered that, first as a television reporter, and then as a studio news anchor for Sky TV. I've worked with him on many scientific and financial productions, and I'm always impressed by his ability to firstly find the story in what are sometimes densely technical situations, and then be able to help people present it. So Chris, take it away.
Thank you very much, Phil. No pressure at all then. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to learn how we passionately believe that video can help you build and grow your business in so many ways. As Phil said, and as I just said, I was on telly for 20 years. And in that time, I had some, frankly, extraordinary adventures. I hiked through the Hindu Kush of Afghanistan with a rebel army. I was in New York after 9/11. I was in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. I even got invited to Saddam Hussein's 60th birthday party. And now I make corporate videos. Not sure where it all went wrong, but no. Joking aside, what I do today in many ways is exactly the same thing that I did on telly for 20 years. I tell stories. That is all that a corporate video effectively is. It's your story. The challenge is, how do you tell that story in an interesting, engaging, even entertaining way? Just on the subject of TV, I was looking at some statistics, which are always good for video, statistics before this. And if you take every single show that's been created by every single US TV network over the last 30 years, all the comedies, all the dramas, all the sports programs, if you take all of that over the last 30 years, then you get the same amount of video content that's being uploaded at the moment every 30 days. That's an awful lot of video. Some of it is good, and some of it is pretty awful, to be honest. So how do you end up in the former camp? That's what we're going to try and look at today. Rule number one, and it's an unbreakable rule, is to create video that resonates with your audience, whether that audience could be investors, it could be consumers, it could be any other stakeholder. You need to inspire, you need to inform, you need to educate, but above all, you need to capture people's attention. Be passionate in telling your story. If you want your audience to believe in your product, your idea, or your service, then they have to believe in you as well. Rule number two is to make the message clear. It doesn't matter how stunning a video looks or how amazing that product, that service or idea is. It's crucial that the narrative is simple and clear, or the message could very easily be lost. Now, I'm not suggesting, because I know that a lot of you come from a very technical, scientific background, I'm not suggesting that you dumb down your approach. What I'm saying is to make sure that your story actually does tell a story. The video tells a story rather than just bombarding the audience, the viewer, with information. Even more impact, of course, can be achieved by illustrating how your product or service is right for that audience. In other words, here's the big thing: show, don't tell. So with that in mind, I might as well stick to my guns. Let's have a look at a couple of the videos that we've made that hopefully bring to life some of these things that I've just mentioned there. Now, the first example is a short film on climate change that we produced with Sir David Attenborough. I am not worthy. I don't get starstruck very often. I got very starstruck that day. He is probably the greatest storyteller of the television age, but as well as his breathtaking nature documentaries, he is, of course, a very passionate campaigner on the issue of climate change. Now, when we discussed how to produce this short film, it was shown at the Paris Climate Change Summit. there were essentially two approaches. There's the approach which is to frighten people in many ways. You show images of coal-fired power stations billowing black smoke into the sky, traffic jams of cars and exhaust fumes, polar bears starving because ice floes are melting and they can't get enough food. Or you can engage, inspire, and motivate your audience in the hope that going down that road will bring about real change. I'm delighted to say that we did go down that second route. And hopefully, Phil, to use an old school phrase, if you roll VT, we can see the film.
I've been lucky enough to spend my life exploring the world's oceans, forests, and deserts. But the Earth, with its spectacular variety of creatures and landscapes, is now in danger. Just one thing, however, would be enough to halt climate change. If clean energy became cheaper than coal, gas, or oil, fossil fuel would simply stay in the ground. The global Apollo program is a positive and practical way to make that happen. In the 1960s, scientists overcame immense odds to achieve something extraordinary: the Apollo mission to the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Now, some of the finest minds on the planet must again unite in the face of an even bigger challenge. We need an international program to discover breakthrough clean technologies. Most of the great advances of the past 100 years have come from publicly funded research: computers, satellites, the internet, and smartphones. All the electricity we now require is available from limitless sources like wind and solar. The sun delivers 5,000 times more energy to the Earth's surface than humanity needs. But renewable energy is intermittent. The sun doesn't always shine. The wind sometimes drops. So we must find even better ways of storing the energy and carrying it long distances to where it's needed. A coordinated 10-year program of international research and development will meet these challenges. Better batteries, cheaper renewable energy, smarter electricity grids. We hope that all major countries will join this program. A relatively small investment will contribute powerfully to a safer and better world. Please support the Global Apollo program, the world's 10-year plan for cheaper, cleaner energy.
Hopefully I'm back in vision now. Can you all see me again? When we made that film, I was reminded of a study that shows that 95% of a message is retained by an audience watching a video, compared with just 10% from reading a piece of text. And when you look at that film we've just shown you, I will never forget that the sun alone delivers 5,000 times the energy that mankind needs. It's just a staggering statistic. So how are we going to get David Attenborough to present your promo videos, I hear you cry? Right, well, his phone number is 07711 93. No, I'm kidding. Okay. It's not going to happen because you're going to be presenting your videos because you are the story. So what I'd like to do is move swiftly on to a science film that we made for a client and tell you about how we helped them tell their story, because it was an incredibly complex story that needed to be translated in many ways, in more than one way, because it actually began at a technical university in Germany called Braunschweig. Now, they are doing some amazing research there in the field of electrochemistry. And they wanted us to produce a film that would help attract both investors, which is something I know a lot of you are interested in, and the best of the best PhD students to work with them on their research. So when Phil and I got there, they had a script that was, to be frank, beyond complex, and a university director who was going to present the film who was utterly terrified as he'd never made a video before. So we sat down with a beer, of course, because it was Germany, and we asked what was the most exciting piece of research that they were working on. Now, it turned out that they're trying to find a way to extract electricity from microorganisms in wastewater. Now, in the simplest of terms, they want to turn poo into power. And that is the story I talked about, resonating, story that would resonate with investors who can see the financial potential, and PhD students who want to work on something that is truly groundbreaking. So we helped the director, Uwe Schroeder, rewrite his script and then set about the process of showing, not telling. Now, given the subject matter and the fact that it was rather sunny the day we were filming, there were moments in filming that I'd rather forget, but I am very proud of the story that we helped the university tell, and it did attract a lot of investment for them. So Phil, hopefully you can press play again.
TU Braunschweig is Germany's oldest technical university, but the ideas we are developing here in the field of chemistry are new and world-leading. Some of the most exciting work is being carried out in the Institute of Environmental and Sustainable Chemistry, particularly in the field of electrochemistry. One important area is the study and development of batteries, how better we can store energy in batteries and extend their working lives. But this is just one part of the electrochemistry story. This is a wastewater treatment plant on the outskirts of Braunschweig. And you can find similar facilities near every major town and city across the planet. Every year in Germany alone, we have to treat 10 cubic kilometers of wastewater. This would be like filling a swimming pool, 1 kilometer wide, 1 kilometer deep, and 10 kilometers long. Not that you would probably want to swim in it. To treat this volume of wastewater requires massive amount of electricity. But there is energy within the wastewater. Wouldn't it thus be amazing to use wastewater as an energy source? Well, we can. This is a prototype reactor that we developed in partnership with the Institute of Sanitary and Environmental Engineering. Here our aim is to transform fundamental research into applied science.
If microbial fuel cells are to become the standard for wastewater treatment, we need cheap and scalable materials to make it work. This is a carbon paper bioanode we developed in our chemistry lab. This is a larger version which is being tested in our prototype you can see behind me. The next stage in development is to create industrial scale systems and materials with which we can economically generate electricity from wastewater.
To drive science forward, however, we need to go back to fundamental research. In our laboratory, we are developing a better understanding of how microorganisms can produce electricity. Using electrochemical, spectroscopic and microscopic techniques, we can study how bacteria can transport electrons not only outside their own cell boundaries, but to an astonishing distance of 500 times their own cell dimensions. Based on that understanding, we are developing methods to harness this process, generating electricity from mankind's waste material. The potential of this work is enormous. If we can develop industrial-scale generators that use waste as a fuel, then we will need less oil, coal, nuclear or green energy sources. We are developing solutions that could help in transforming mankind's energy supply.
Thank you, Professor Uwe Schroeder. Now, the reason I'm so proud of that film is the fact that we translated something incredibly complex and scientific, which is probably resonating with you as the audience as well, into a language that was accessible and engaging. You may know your own story inside out, but can you tell it to an audience and hold their attention? little example in that film. There's a moment in the video when Uwe is explaining the volume of wastewater that has to be treated in just Germany every year. And rather than offering up just a number, he talks about the size of the swimming pool that all that wastewater would fill. He brings a science fact to life by painting a picture, albeit not the most attractive of pictures, but certainly one that stays in the mind. And if I can ask you to take one thing away from my part in this presentation, it's when you come to make your video, share what you believe, not just what you do. Companies like Apple aren't successful just because they make great computers or phones. Apple and other technology pioneers are driven by the desire to do things differently, to challenge the status quo, to be passionate about everything they do. By the way, there is a brilliant TED talk by a guy called Simon Sinek on this very subject. Take that away as homework as well. Engage with your audience. Don't just talk to them. Show, don't tell. And if the audience believes in you, then they will believe in your story. Thank you for listening to mine. Hello. That's it. Do I get an encore? Hang on a minute. I'll go and do another quick 5 minutes. Hang on.
I'll give you applause. No, that's fantastic. I think that's some great examples posted on the side of the more informative climate change one, but also a very scientific topic. So that's fantastic. So then, can we hand over back to Phil?
Yeah, so the next bit, we've kind of covered this ground already, but what we're aiming for here today is twofold. For those just starting out and seeking the first funding steps, hopefully there'll be some tips and ideas that will help you put together your own productions while reserving precious startup capital. And if that's where you are, we can help in a number of ways that cost a lot less than a full production service. It could be consultancy on content, script or story writing, or maybe remote guidance over Zoom to help you improve your sound or image quality. The offer we've put together talks about editing, but book a free slot from the link in the chat and we can see what works best for you. We obviously also provide a full production service for those of you further along the funding route and would be delighted to work with you to develop video assets that will maximise your chances of securing that next funding round. Videos to help secure investment are, I guess, the primary reason most of you are here. But in today's, sorry, hang on a second, just need to change the setting. Sorry about that. So, too many settings on my computer. I'm trying to, as I'm going backwards and forwards. But in today's increasingly video-centric world, there are a multitude of other ways videos can be useful, from social media awareness to training and instruction on technology or processes, to sales tools helping land those crucial first customers. And so far, we've mostly thought about what goes in the video, content, story, and so on. Now let's look at some of the production processes and the technology used to produce video. And I'll share some tips for making your own content based on the kinds of mistakes I've seen people make while we've been putting things together, like videos for a global travel company rebrand, or the vice presidents of a leading tech company rolling out their new well-being strategy. These are all remote productions where we've been working on for these companies. I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is that most people would think that the picture comes first, but actually if the subject is someone talking, the sound is actually more critical. We can accept a compromised image if we can hear the story unfold, while poor sound renders the film pointless to watch. So the first thing is to plan to be somewhere without background noise, or to have control of the noise, unless the background noise is part of the story. For instance, something like the hum of a machine that's making a prototype. And if this is the situation you're in, it's even more critical to do a test recording or have someone monitoring the sound. So make sure your sound works before you do start dealing with the picture. Do a test record, even if it's part of the video. So dedicated quality microphones used well can give you broadcast quality, but phones or laptops with good microphones can deliver perfectly usable sound. But one of the things that we've been doing when we've been remote recording is getting someone's phone and just getting it to put it on the desk and use voice memo to record the sound. So that's kind of nice and clean and away from other things. A lot better than you'd get through Zoom, certainly. You want to, with terms of getting the microphone as close as possible, you may have seen that I'm wearing, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, I've got a tie clip mic on. I'm not actually using the tie clip mic, I've just got it on for demonstration purposes. So the first few little tips about using one, which is great, I mean, this is what we would normally use to record someone, is that you can see I've kind of got it on my black shirt, so it's relatively discreet. That's not essential, just a nice little touch. The cable runs down inside my shirt, not dangling over the top of my shirt. Again, just makes it look nice and neat. And also make sure that the microphone's not actually rubbing on any clothing. So again, this is something you want to do with a test and just see how what it actually sounds like, not what you hope it sounds like. Making sure it's connected and all that kind of stuff. In terms of microphones, some of you may be working possibly with cameras or something rather than phones or laptops. So you might have a microphone like this. So the main parts of what this is and what it does for you is that it's inside we have a directional microphone, little slots here taking sound in from the side, which means that it's cancelling that out, and it's primarily taking the sound from the front more than from the side. So it's called a directional microphone. Some of you are probably very familiar with these principles, but if you're not using it all the time, maybe not so. So the next thing is this, a wind gag, a fluffy, or as it's called in the trade, a dead mouse. And so that just, if you are somewhere outside, it's really essential to stop the wind blowing across the microphone, and these wind gags do a great job. And the third part of this kind of tool is the suspension mount. So if I've got it attached to a camera, so I'm moving around the camera, zooming in, zooming out, doing something with the lens, moving my hands around, those movements aren't transmitted through into the microphone. So all that's useful. You can get things like this. Some of them will clip onto phones or something like that as well. So they can be very useful little tools, way better than something that's built in that's picking up sound from all around. So that's the main things about sound technology. Avoid things like jewelry that rattles. That happens a lot. Particularly careful not to get it rattling against your lavalier microphone. Squeaky chairs, that's another big one. Emphasizing points by banging on the table. It's very easy to do. You're talking along and you're kind of emphasizing a point, but it's makes a disturbing kind of noise, as does feet tapping and things like that. So you have to be aware of those kinds of things. The caveat to the importance of sound is it's perfectly possible and quite common to make a film with pictures and text that the audience might watch with the sound off. But this, you're going to be doing that. That should be a plan and not an afterthought, because you can't hear it. Moving from sound on to picture, people spend entire lifetimes learning how to make great pictures, but in 5 minutes you can eliminate many of the most distracting problems. So one of which is light behind the subject. So the most common problem is something like a window, and what you see going on here is that as the camera is looking at the light in the middle of the screen, it's actually turning its gain down, which means I look darker. So that happens not only with windows in shot, but it also happens with sunshine on walls and things behind you, and that of course changes through the day as the sun travels around. The camera automatically adjusts and you become a silhouette. So you just need to be aware of that, fix it. The next after that, so that's the most common problem I'm seeing with remote filming, and presumably with people filming themselves as well, since I'm not seeing them do that. The next thing is dirty lenses. So if you're using a phone lens to shoot something, or a laptop lens, I've seen quite a lot of people who've, I don't know, they've had their sandwiches out, got a bit of jam on their fingers, opened their laptop, and kind of, they're not aware of it, but it kind of puts a smear over the front of the lens, so to clean the lens. And this is starting to get more advanced stuff. Keep the camera still, so rest it on something, or a tripod is great. But if you don't have a tripod, you can use other things. The simple little cheat that I have here is a rubber band, phone, and a broom. Oh dear, just broken the rubber band, just as well as one on here. Broomstick, rubber band, and the phone just sits in here and rests up against the chair, piece of furniture, something like that. It gives you, it's not what I'd recommend, but if you haven't got anything else, you could go with that. But you know, don't use it for your laptop. It doesn't matter what it looks like, no one can see it. So another big one, keep your camera level. You know, you don't want to be shooting with a camera at a kind of funny angle. It's just great if it's a deliberate artistic choice, not great if it was an accidental something that happened. The next biggest thing is headroom. So in the picture here with me, there's a little bit of rim above my head. That's kind of natural and comfortable. Quite often we'd see pictures, people are filming it like this. You can still see my face, but it's not a comfortable, natural kind of picture. Less often seeing something like that or that. So just watch out for that, because it makes quite a big difference as the impression an audience gets. So moving on to our next insert, we've got different ways to present information, and coming up next is one you may not have considered, but actually you could do this yourself. It's brought to you by Claire Nazir, a meteorologist and TV presenter. As well as presenting the weather for Channel 5, she works in ambassadorial role for the UN and is communications advisor to Sustainability Investment Foundation, Regen Capital Future. So just give me a second while I switch my feed over to the video.
Hi, I'm here at home in a green screen studio that I broadcast from daily. This would never have happened pre-pandemic. I was always presenting from a television studio, but it just goes to show what can be done. In a television studio, there are experienced crews and hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment. Here, most of what I have can be easily bought online, and I set it up myself. If this was special effects work for a feature film, and say they needed to have my character in a spaceship or a dangerous situation, then the list of requirements would be huge, from costumes, specialist lighting, wind effects, and so on, just to make it look realistic. But for presenting the weather, or for something like adding a human touch to an investor deck, it provides a simple solution. For me, it was a steep learning curve, and if you do want to do this yourself, here are a few tips I've uncovered the hard way. Blackout blinds are a great and inexpensive investment to create uniform lighting. Rechargeable LED lights reduce the risk of tripping over numerous cables on the floor. And when the dog starts barking at a leaf blowing in the wind outside, ditch the mic and make a brew. I'm going to hand you back now to Phil and Chris. I wish you the best of luck with your initiatives, and maybe we'll meet up for real sometime.
So that was Claire, and one way you could meet for real would be for her to work on your film as an advisor. Like Chris, she's also a media trainer as well as a writer. or possibly you could use her as a presenter, and Chris would obviously be very pleased to present your films as well. She's interested in projects that move the human experience onwards. If you're going to use slides in a presentation, one mistake I see over and over again is too much information on each slide. Break it down, change slide more often, only talk about what's on the slide and only show what you're talking about. It's a very different experience than a live slideshow presentation, and people may be watching on small screens as well, so no way that they can take in all that detailed information I see so often on slide decks that people give me to put into videos. So Claire's green screen demonstration neatly takes us into post-production graphics and animation. So sometimes there are processes, maybe drug interactions inside the human body that can't be shown even with a microscope. In situations like this, 3D graphics can be really useful. I mean, needless to say, this is not a low budget option, but here's a short clip from a method of action video produced by our animation partner.
Decreased catabolism occurs because VLDL and chylomicrons share a common pathway for clearance involving lipoprotein lipase. In these patients with hypertriglyceridemia, decreased activity of lipoprotein lipase and this competition for clearance both lead to increased triglycerides. Increased secretion of ApoC3 by the liver further delays VLDL clearance by lipoprotein lipase and inhibits binding of remnants to hepatic clearance receptors. In addition to elevated triglycerides, these patients often have other related changes in lipids. In the presence of hypertriglyceridemia, HDL becomes enriched with triglyceride and depleted of cholesterol. These particles are more rapidly cleared from the circulation following hydrolysis by hepatic lipase, leading to decreased HDL levels. Similarly, relatively heightened exchange of triglycerides between VLDL and LDL leads to relatively triglyceride-enriched and cholesterol-depleted LDL.
Sorry, rather clumsy out there on the end. So that's a whole other thing that can be utilized within a film with live action. It could be utilized as an entire thing by itself. It's another thing to consider, but especially since a lot of these, as I understand, I've yet to get to meet you all and know what exactly your projects are, but a lot may well be dealing with these kinds of concerns. So that's taken us through sound, camera, green screen. I'm not really going to talk about editing. It's a whole lifetime's career in itself, mastering editing. And I'm not going to say any more about it than other than if it seems like it's too daunting, find a 10-year-old. They all seem to be experts. So I'm now going to hand you over to Stephen.
Well, that was pretty amazing, Phil. I've got to say, I really enjoyed that. I loved the bit with Claire in there as well, doing her green screen. I mean, just to sort of wrap up and summarize, some of these things you might think, yeah, it's easy. Other things you might be struggling a bit. And you sat there thinking, well, I need some help in context with my business. You might think, okay, so I do a video. How do I disseminate it? Do I put it on YouTube? Do I put it on Vimeo? How do I get it out there? And if I want to do maybe social media, what sort of size? Is it a few seconds? Is it a few minutes? There are all sorts of questions that everybody's going to have very, very different questions in context about your business. Could even be about green screen. Green screen is not as difficult as it used to be. And we could even guide you through if you wanted to self-do that or work with us. I should stress, we're talking a lot about remote filming today, but given the problems with COVID-19, we are still traveling. So, we are being asked to go around the world and work in all sorts of different places, but remote at the moment is probably the easiest way to do things. And also if your budgets are smaller. So do take a look at the link in the chat. If you want to know anything about anything to do with video, anything to do with film, it's your opportunity to talk to the experts. I'm more commercial, but Phil will be able to answer all of your questions. If you want to click on the link, go to Calendly, pick a date and time that suits you, and we'll be happy to run through things that will help you. And also, again, you can walk away with that. Basically, most of the notes from today that were put there for you. But thank you, Phil.
Phil, can I just point out that I've heard a million presentations in my life, but I've never heard one that referenced jam sandwiches and triglycerides in the same presentation. So I salute you, my friend.
Don't forget the elastic bands.
It was the jam sandwiches. I was transported back 40 odd years to a picnic with my dad. You got me going there. Sorry, carry on, Phil. Carry on. Oh
well, that's it. We're at the end now, so it's Q&A time. So have we had any questions come in now?
I know there's a question about some advice about a good quality microphone that could be used to plug into something like an iPad or an iPhone or whatever. It's something we've talked about so often. We've pushed clients again and again and again to use, because it just raises the bar, that little important bit, compared to sort of trying to record something on an iPhone. So Phil, what kind of stuff have you used?
Well, most of the time, so I've got a microphone here. There's another one over here in the background. And then these ones. So most of the time I don't actually have one for a phone because I don't need one. So I've got kind of like radio microphone packs and all sorts of things like that. But I'm afraid I actually don't know the answer.
I mean, there is a simple answer, because we did discuss it. He pays you money and he takes your choice. So the radio microphones that we use, the one that you just showed there, is what, £600 or £700, which may be way outside a lot of people's budget.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to say this. I'm going to advertise Amazon. I'm going to advertise the fact that go on to Amazon. There's lots of stuff out there. I think there was another question about lighting. Wasn't there?
Yeah. So I think. So we have actually a few questions on stock footage as well, and along with that, music, because I know a lot of people will be interested in using that as like background footage for their videos. Do you have any suggestions for places to source those?
Well, there are loads of libraries, and we use quite a variety of different ones. So it sort of depends a bit on what you like, really. Music is very subjective. I mean, I've been in a situation where I've put music on a film, and the client said, "Oh, I don't like that," and then we've been through 5 or 6 different bits of music, and then another client from the different person from the same company comes and says, "What about this piece? What you mean the piece I used right at the beginning?" So it is subjective, but in terms of where to find it, there are a number of if you put library music in as a search, you'll find loads of different ones. There are some free music.
That's the key point, though, isn't it, Phil? That a lot of people we work with think, "Oh, can I have Beyonce in my video, or can I have whatever?" And the bottom line is, if you are putting that online, no, because it's royalty. But there are agencies such as Pond 5 is one that we use a lot, Premium Beat, Envato, and they will sell you basically royalty-free music tracks. So a composer comes up with something that's a rock track, is a blues track, is a classical track, whatever, different mood, different themes, and they will sell that track to 1,000 different customers. So instead of costing you £10,000 for the track, it costs you probably £50 for the track. So it's not expensive, but the point Phil's making is it's highly subjective as well. Something you may like, other people will think is cheesy or inappropriate or whatever. It's like all these things. Get some advice, run ideas past people before you do anything. Whenever I'm asking people interview questions, I'm asking them to rehearse at home. Get their loved ones, their partners, to give them honest feedback. You're boring, Dad. You're interesting, Mum. You're dull. You're whatever. Get some honest feedback, because that's the best way to go. Was there the question about footage as well?
Yeah, so actually,
Same thing,
so it could be a footage library, stock footage, library footage. So these search terms will deliver you a number of different image libraries. And again, what you're doing is you're paying a relatively small amount, much cheaper. You need a shot of the Alps, much cheaper than going to the Alps and filming them.
We'll do that. I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the time, the shots that you need don't exist online because they're specific things, specific processes or whatever. But if what you need is, as you say, a shot of the Alps, there's plenty of those in footage libraries. So it's just finding the ones that you like and you can afford, because they vary also quite a lot in price, from sort of 50 pounds a clip to thousands of pounds a clip.
And the agencies differ as well. I mean, probably I don't know about you, Phil, I think Getty's probably the #1, but you pay for the quality of the imagery. It depends what you need. Do you really need a 4K ultra high resolution blah 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 shot, or do you just need a 1080 HD shot? It's like all these things. You can spend as much as you like, but you don't have to spend much as well. And
quality, again, is one of those things. I wasn't going to say so much as subjective, but it's very much in the eye of the beholder. And a lot of people will agree this is a high quality shot, but they don't really know what makes it a high quality shot. It's the movement, it's the composition, it's the color grading, it's the depth of color within the shot initially on the sensor. It's a whole range of things that kind of start at science and kind of end in that kind of ephemeral thing called consciousness.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those are really good points, and I think, we even Innovation Forum even just use some libraries such as Pexels and stuff like that, which is found pretty interesting. And I think it's also a good point to not just go for the first one on Google, especially for music, because you hear like that first like royalty-free like ding 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 thing from everyone, so like, having a little bit of a
plinky plonky piano song.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with it. Don't use it.
Everyone's got the plinky plonky piano song, right?
But going back to what I was trying to say is, how does this help you tell your story? It needs to be appropriate. It needs to be relevant. That's what you need to think about.
We also have a question here on basic light setups and what you could get on a budget, and not like a light setup that I have, which is obviously right now. But yeah, any advice on that?
Well, the quick, simple one really is a ring light from Amazon. I mean, that's going to be the quick, simple solution. You don't necessarily have to have a ring light, for those who are not familiar, I haven't got one because I've got loads of other lights. So basically it sits around your device, your camera, your laptop, or your iPod or whatever, and your phone. And so it's providing light from all around. I've got a light just kind of up there just to help us, because I knew it's sort of heading towards evening, so I wanted to kind of just make sure there was a light on me. So in that light, it's creating what's called modeling. So you can see this side of my face is, I'm not mirrored because otherwise all the videos I was playing would have come out mirrored. This side of my face is a little bit darker, and you've got a shadow here. With a ring light, you don't get any of that, which can be great. And so it's great for makeup tutorials and all that sort of stuff. It's great for also getting rid of wrinkles. But we kind of quite like modeling. Cameramen quite like what we call modeling, rather than the very flat light that you get from a ring light. So there's a lot of things. So with your ring light, it doesn't have to be over the middle. It could be, it's better to have it above, because that kind of gives a natural shadow under the chin. If you're lit from underneath, it looks like you're trying to make a horror film.
How do I get rid of my second one that lockdown's given me as well? What's the best advice on that? Let me back on TV.
Lay off the pies.
Lay off the pie. Thank you for that masterclass.
Yeah, that's that's the real lesson from the workshop. Right?
So the other thing that's really nice with the light, so you can see on Owen's face, it's rather harsh in his in that example, but there's what we call a rim light, an edge light on the side of his face. So I wouldn't be kind of aiming for exactly what we've got there, but a much subtler version is often something we like. We put a light up behind, so that it just puts a little bit of an edge on something, and that kind of really helps lift things out of the background and so on. So, but so that's what I do a lot of the time with two lights. One from the front, which is doing something like this, sometimes a bit more modeling, and often one from the back on the shadow side, so that it's just kind of putting a little bit of edge on and lifting away from the background.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I think it's really important, these sort of small tips that can really enhance the experience and the professionalism of the video, right? So I know from my own days of making like video for a startup, like very sort of scrappy, using a smartphone here to try and get the audio and stuff, like getting these, I would have loved to get these kind of tips. And actually one of the questions I have, which actually fits in with Mihir's question here, of any examples or exercises you can do to help speaking to video or camera. And along with that, actually, like question actually on my side is, I know often you kind of talk a little bit off camera, and that kind of can look better. Can you talk a little bit about that? I guess, maybe Chris, do you want to start a little bit about how do you talk to camera?
There are multiple questions there. Mahir's question is also talking about simplifying the message. Now, I touched on this about the danger of suggesting you dumb down something that is very scientific. I'm not suggesting that, but if I tell you that the BBC's style book for writing a news story suggests that an intelligent 14-year-old should be able to understand what the story is all about, that's a very good starting point to try to explain your story. If you have created something, if there is a problem and you found the solution, then paint a picture. Tell your audience why your product, your idea, your service, whatever it may be, is of value. To be honest, I've got 30 years experience of writing, doing that kind of thing. But it's a very good starting point to talk to somebody, as I said before, who you can trust, who will give you honest feedback. And you heard the elevator pitch idea. This is another good thing to start on. The elevator pitch, which is a finite period of time, normally 30 seconds, to explain to your audience what your product, your idea, your service is. Go away and practice a 30-second presentation, bringing everything in your creation, your idea, your invention, whatever it may be, to life. What was the other thing, good thing about rehearsing in advance? So Ewan, you talked about this is a conventional down the lens, it's called camera shot, and this is the being interviewed on TV type of shot. They're a lot easier to do because you're talking to somebody rather than having to talk to the camera. So we would often, if you look at the films we made, apart from, well, obviously David Attenborough's looking at the camera because David Attenborough is a TV presenter, but if you looked at Uwe Schroeder, he would look at the camera because he's the presenter, but everybody else who'd be in the film would be looking in that kind of interview shot. And it's a lot easier to do. You feel a lot more relaxed talking to somebody rather than talking to a camera itself. It gives it that kind of look and feel of a news report. I mean, if I go back to my background, you're creating a news report about your idea, your product, your service, whatever it may be.
Oh, that's great. And are there any like tips on learning your kind of lines when trying to get in stuff natural for talking in the camera beyond, just practicing with friends, etc.?
20 years of working on TV is a good tip. Do you know what? It all comes down to practice. I media train people all the time, and there is no kind of magic set of rules and tricks and tips and techniques. It's being comfortable in telling the story. It's certainly for making it. Certainly, if you were if you were employing us to come and make a video with you, we don't just literally turn up on Monday morning with a tripod over the shoulder and go, right then, where are we starting? You know, there is a consultation process where you try to explain to us what your story is, and we help you tell that story. We translate something that you may know inside out, but you're not able to translate that into, appealing to an audience, whether that's investors or staff, stakeholders, whoever you're trying to talk to. But it is really all about practice. It's being comfortable with the message.
Yeah.
So I'll just chip in there, having worked on some of the media training stuff with Chris, I'm amazed how the difference it makes to people having going through that process of just a little bit of familiarity, and it's not a huge amount of time, but the difference it makes to people's how comfortable they feel presenting is enormous.
I'll give you one tip, which is most of us work in a world where we have a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When you're trying to capture people's attention in a video, when you're trying to hook an audience's attention, in many ways you need to start with the end. You need to start with the conclusion. You need to start with the punchline of the joke. This is an incredible idea because it's going to do this, and then you explain it. You're not building up to it. You're hooking people's attention. So that comes back to the elevator pitch idea. Or if you want to condense it even further, it is, what is my story in just one sentence? You've got one sentence to tell me why I should listen to the next 3 minutes of this video. One sentence. So it's little exercises like that, to go back to the original question, which will help you.
Yeah, those are excellent tips. Thank you very much. And then we have a question from Amal, who's asking about video editing software. Any good tips or free ones out there? One thing I would just add on my side is I know that academic, you can get a student/academic Adobe suite for much cheaper than regular, that I know of. But yeah, if there's any.
Well, so Adobe is most of the editors that I am currently working with are all Adobe based, and it's Adobe Premiere Pro, and consequently, because that everyone uses it, because then we can interchange projects and files and all that kind of stuff. It does cost you though. It's a subscription basis, even if you're paying half price as a student. I'm not quite sure what the level is. It's around that. So in terms of a free one, which I see the question is asking, there's a fantastic piece of software called Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. This was once upon a time a £20,000 piece of software, color grading software, that's kind of grown and morphed and changed. It was bought out by Blackmagic, and now they give it away free. With paid upgrades for other things. So it tends to be used more by color graders, more by effects people, but it's a very effective free piece. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up taking over Adobe's kind of slot at the top.
Yeah, amazing. Are there any other questions from the chat? We can also go if people can also put their hand up with but we're actually coming into time, so if there's any sort of burning questions, I'm going to put it there. Thank you very much for adding that in the chat as well.
Just did one question here from Dragana Savic about free resources on stock voices and video clips. I don't know anything that's free on video clips, but one thing that's changed a lot when it comes to voiceovers is historically you went into a studio in Soho in London and you paid £250 an hour or whatever. A lot of voiceover artists these days have studios in their own homes. They can digitally record something even on a smartphone, and the cost is absolutely hammered down. So that's something to look into again if you really are limited with a budget. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the quality of a professional sound recording studio. But if your budget's limited, it's certainly something to look into.
Yeah. So I think something to just wrap up on is, so we've circulated some guidelines on the promotional video, like the promo video submitted as part of the Imagine Earth program, which will be a 2-minute video to really just showcase the idea and really get that short story to showcase your idea. So I just wanted to finish up, and also can ask Stephen here maybe to get his opinion on the more business side as well, of anything you would advise to include in that video, really to really promote.
Oh, it's a good question. I think the guys have done a really, really good job of explaining the ins and outs of things, and hopefully, you know, some good tips today about everything from sort of lighting and sound and all the key things that you're going to need. And I think Chris and Phil have said very well, there's a huge range of things. You could do most of this with some very, very basic pieces of kit. And that's what, if you go on the Calendly link and you download a how-to, it'll say, we've got a whole list there, which ranges from very sort of Mickey Mouse things like some sticky tape, through to having your smartphone, ideally having a separate camera if you can as well. Phil's got some great tips and tricks where he can actually remotely view what's going on using 2 streams. He can actually help you through and see what's going on as well. And it's his years behind a camera that really take it from something that's okay to something that's a lot better on a pretty low budget remotely. So that's worth thinking about. But commercially,
the budget doesn't get much lower than a rubber band and a wooden stick.
Well, exactly. That's true. I think if I have to say anything commercially, okay, it's my mantra. Always put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to sell to. So if that's a social media short you're doing, you want something sizzly and buzzly for that. If it's actually something like trying to for your website, if you want it on there, if you're producing a website to show people what you do, it's a different genre, it's a different way of doing things. But think if it's particularly you're trying to raise investment. I've been there, I've seen it, I've done it. I've stood on podiums myself. I've raised investment. I've had crowds of people around for cutting edge, bleeding edge environmental technologies and so on. And then I've been on the other side of the fence, sitting with the dragons and advising them due diligence, who to choose, who should we invest in. Chris put it really well earlier. You've got to sum it up, the elevator pitch. If you can practice that, like you said, a 30-second elevator pitch, and he's right. Think of it like a news headline. If in the old days now of newspapers, the news headline, people used to buy on the headline. Think of the headline. What is it that you're really, really trying to get across? Why are people going to buy into this? You've got to have a sound idea that's worth investing in, but you've got to get a return on investment. I'd love you all to save the world, and that would be wonderful. But somebody's got to invest in this, and we do live in a commercial environment. It's got to make money. So you want to be balancing the quality of the story, as Chris keeps hammering on about, and it's very important. But what's in it for me? If I'm an investor, why am I putting my hard-earned cash in this? What am I going to get out of it? I'll say no more.
That's fantastic. Any tips from you, Chris and Phil?
I was really interested that Steve mentioned the newspaper idea, because any well-written story, and remember, this is all coming back to telling your story. Pick up any quality newspaper or any tabloid, to be honest. If it's a good, well-written tabloid, you only need to read the first paragraph of the story. Everything after that is filler. Everything, all the key elements in the story are in that opening paragraph. So that's what you should work on for telling your story. Master, finesse that opening paragraph, hook your audience, and build from there. And Phil gets some more rubber bands.
I was just thinking there's just one little thing for editing, and it works all the way through the storytelling, the content, which is if something's not working, if it's not right, you know, cut it out or change it. You know, put it in a way that does work. So that's my one editing tip that I'm gonna give. Gonna get rid of the rubbish.
And on that note, editing, it's always been my bugbear. When I was a student, oh God, centuries ago, I did a short course on video and I thought, oh, this is not for me, it's too difficult. And that was in the days, Chris will remember, with a giant camera on the shoulder. And basically, I guess at the end of the day, editing, I found editing so difficult. And there are, you know, with a smartphone and so on, we've got amazing tech these days where you could actually take the shots. Yeah, you're not going to do them as well without Phil guiding you, but you could do a lot of this yourself. But at the end of the day, how do you edit? And that's the kind of lowest form of package we're offering at the 295, where we can guide you, you can do these shots, and then Phil will make sure it does not come out completely terrible. So I'm saying that we can't obviously do something Hollywood on a tiddly little budget, but we can take what you've got, edit it, and make it look pretty cool. So I would say don't worry too much about the editing. At the prices we're offering on editing, you may as well get us to help you with that. But if you do want some hints and tips, you do want to do it yourself, book a meeting and we'll go through it with you.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up. I think it's great to have all of your sort of really complementary experience on the different aspects, and I think it's really useful to, I think, because getting that communication piece of, especially at the early stage of setting up a startup, is really key to get those key sort of investors or stakeholders of any kind to really get engaged with the idea and really like help you take it forward. So, and that's kind of one of the key messages of Imagineif, is to connect with those people who can really like help you to get your idea forward, and be able to communicate the idea effectively is a key component of that. And that's, again, getting that down to like that elevator pitch is something we're also promoting with the startup report and everything, and it really sort of is built into the program, because I think everyone gets very excited about the science, and this is your baby, right? And then breaking it down then into, well, how do I communicate this, and what's the real exciting part of what, like, why is Bob on the street going to be interested in your idea? So I think it's been fantastic to get all of your opinions, ideas, and I think it's going to be super useful. And yeah, we'll post the link again in the chat if anyone wants to set up a call to have a free consultation to start with. Just check out the videos, even, I guess, maybe even if you'd be happy to like check out their like first draft, I guess, of what they've got. I think it'd be great to have feedback to everyone.
Yeah, and when you're all multi-millionaires, don't forget.
Of course. Yeah, then you could have the real, like the yeah.
Oh, you can have the full-on 4K experience there.
Yeah, then you get the documentary film, like the Hollywood production, right? To chronicle your story. That's where you want to get to.
Please.
Yeah.
Well, dreams, dreams can come true. You know, I was talking with somebody last week, and it was their goal to move their project further forward, and they've been struggling for a while, and with a little bit of help, in about a week's time, they're now going to be selling, hopefully doing a proof of concept for their drone software for the head of a major oil company, the CEO, in a Middle Eastern country. So dreams can come true. we can help point you in the right direction. We can also, I'm not a videographer. I will never say I have no knowledge like Chris and Phil have. But if you want some commercial help as well, trying to get your business going, making some money, I'll add that bit to the mix for you as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I think that's a great place to wrap up. And I just want to say again, thank you very much for PictureCo first for being a partner for this workshop, and also just you sharing your advice and and it's I think it'd be super useful for all the startups. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to also post a link here for the latest updates email for anyone, Imagine If, who wants to check out the other workshops coming up and all the latest updates. And yeah, thank you very much and have a nice evening.